Says you are live.
So we're going to try this again. Thank you so much for listening to the No Ceilings TV YouTube channel, the No Ceilings NBA podcast feed.
They didn't listen.
Yeah.
They
All right, fine.
Thank you for attempting to
Thanks
listen.
for watching.
I'm saying thank you right now for still tuning into us. The second time's the charm here, but welcome to the 2022 No Ceilings NBA Las Vegas Summer League live stream number 1. We will definitely be doing more of these live shows / pods while we're here, but my name is Nathan Grubel. You would know me as @DraftDeeper on Twitter. I am your host for this. But guys, can I say this is a momentous occasion right now? Because we're actually here in person. I don't have to just look at you through a StreamYard box or something going live. I can literally look at your faces. Albert, I'm glad to have met you. You're much taller in person than I would have expected. Same with Rucker. But listen, we got Nick here, we got Corey, we got Albert, and we have Rucker. So guys, thank you so much for hopping on this with me today. I'll just go around the room. We'll see how everybody's doing. Nick, how you doing?
Man, it is great to be back here for the second attempt. Appreciate you not throwing me out of the house in between takes here. It's been awesome to meet all of you. Unlike some of the people at this table, I think everybody else at this table, I have met 0 of the people here in person before right now. And this is also my first time in Las Vegas for Summer League, so really excited to get out there and watch some games later today.
Corey, how you doing, man?
Well, first of all, I'm impressed because Nick just busted that entire monologue out verbatim from the first time we tried recording it. So there's a future for this kid in acting. I'm doing awesome, man. This is the best. Getting together with everybody. You know, Nathan and I have scouted games live. Albert and I went to the draft live last year.
Right.
But meeting Nick, Rucker, super cool experience. Rucker's been pounding beers all morning. He's hammered already.
No,
so
I'm not.
true Vegas fashion. But most of all, I'm just excited to watch hoops literally for like 12 hours straight. See a bunch of guys live for the first time that I didn't get a chance to scout during the season, react, analyze it. I'm stoked, man.
Listen, 10:50 a.m. Pacific time, so it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? Somebody's got to do that job for us. But Albert, how you feeling, boss?
I feel good. It's insane to finally meet you guys in person. I mean, Rucker and I have shared a hotel room together 3 times already.
We don't need to keep talking about it. We don't need to keep talking about old stuff.
Vegas stays in Vegas now.
We didn't have that.
But yeah, meeting Nick is awesome. So I'm excited, and we get to see our Knicks today. So extra excited. So ready to go.
Our Knicks. That was not subtle at all.
Oh, it was for Alex. I know Alex is watching right now. So shouts to you.
Rucker, we're the Summer League vets here.
Yeah.
Out of this current group of in-person guys. So you pumped to be back in Vegas for some more degenerate level basketball that we all love watching. Maybe we get to educate the general public a little bit more on some of these guys. Not everybody is, I feel like, always amped to watch Summer League basketball, but we are. That's why we do this. We love it. So you ready to see some more basketball, educate some of these fine folks?
Yeah, I mean it's been awesome to finally meet you guys. I'm excited potentially next year to meet the entire crew. I know everyone's got some stuff going on, but Summer League's a magical time of the year. It's a great place, and this is paradise, and I'm excited to get a look at these guys. You know, we got to watch the games all together last night, but it's going to be some fun players today, and I'm excited to see everyone get after it. This is the best time of the year. I love this. Other than the draft, this is awesome.
As I tried to say in the first run of this podcast, this is one of my favorite times of the year to be able to be here and watch everybody in person, be able to connect with fans. We're going to have some fans of ours that we're going to get to meet now in person this year, but also just making connections with other people around the league. This is Summer League. No other professional sports league does something like Summer League, right? Like what the NBA does, the open environment, you're able to literally rub elbows and bump into anybody, talk to anybody, get to know people, make those connections. That's what we're here to do. But we're going to watch plenty of basketball. We're going to evaluate these guys, and we're going to talk about it. And today's live stream / podcast, I feel like we have to talk about the big boys that have already played. We'll talk about some of the action from last night. We'll get into some of the California Classic / Utah Summer League stuff, and then we'll talk about really what we want to see today. What are the games that we're looking forward to today? But let's start off with what we saw last night. As Rucker alluded to, we did get to watch both of those games with each other in person. We were making all the comments, Houston Rockets, Orlando Magic. Big matchup. Paolo, number 1 overall pick, versus Jabari Smith, the number 3 overall pick. Orlando actually ended up winning the game. I was a little surprised by that, 91-77. I thought it would have been a little bit of a closer game. I really liked Houston's Summer League team, but obviously what they're building heading into next NBA season. And there were some bright moments for some guys on that Houston team, but really, I think the biggest story here, obviously, is what Paolo Banchero was able to do. And we're going to read off some numbers as we go through this live stream today. Just for everybody listening, I mean, we're not as concerned about, or at least I'm not as concerned about the numbers that we see in the box score. I care about what I'm actually watching. How easy does the game look for these guys in this type of environment? And Paolo, listen, we can talk about some of the questions we might have about the shot selection. I think there's been other people who did some write-ups after last night who were talking about how tough some of the shots looked that he was taking. Could he actually get into those looks in a rhythm? Did it look good? Did it look like he's going to be able to translate a lot of what he was doing last night right into the NBA from day one as we head into the next regular season? My answer to that would be yes. I thought Paolo looked really, really good last night. I certainly thought he looked better than Jabari in certain areas, at least on the offensive end of the floor. But let's just kind of go around the room a little bit. Let's get some thoughts about what we thought about those two guys in particular. So, Rucker, why don't you lead us off as you crack into that Coke?
Yeah,
on a Friday morning. Paolo versus Jabari. What did you see last night?
I thought Paulo was gonna have a great summer league. I think this is me and Corey talked about it last night. We mentioned it. I think summer league is perfect for a guy like Paulo. He should be putting up some good numbers. It wasn't anything I wasn't expecting, and I also think Jabari is gonna take a little bit of time to find his groove, especially with the summer league play, like adjusting everything. Everyone's going to freak out about his handle. I'm not too worried about that. But Paul's going to put up big numbers. He looked great. Caleb Houston looked great. Plenty of guys.
Caleb Houston actually did look really good last 20 points on 7 of 12 shooting, 5 of 9 from three-point range. Now we can talk about how many of those shots, he should have actually gotten if the other team was actually
green
playing
light.
defense.
J.R. Smith was proud.
I'm gonna give you guys some really in-depth analysis that you're not getting anywhere else.
Here we go.
When you make shots, you look good.
Yeah, you look real good.
You look good when you make shots. It's a make or miss league. But for me, Paolo, this was made for him. This is his time, man.
Yeah.
Like, if there is one guy who you could say is going to not have any struggles, it's Paolo Banchero, because he's not reliant on outside shots. He's not reliant on his athleticism. He's a big guy who can create his own shot with spacing, and if he needs a bucket, he can get to other spots on the floor where he feels comfortable in the mid-range, on the block. The outside jumper, him knocking down 2 threes, that's cake. That's bonus stuff. But for a guy like that, it's just the type of structure he's gonna thrive. It's other guys who are more reliant on their speed. They have to get used to playing with guys who are more athletic. It's no longer college where your athleticism is so dominant that you're just going to be able to turn on the jets and get to a spot, because most of the guys have maybe not the same top tier athleticism, but at least a notch above what you were playing at the college level. So Paolo didn't have that adjustment because that's not what his game's relying on. So for the fact that he got the better of the Jabari matchup, I'm not surprised, especially because we talk about the Jabari not being able to handle or whatever. The reason that would be a quote-unquote concern is because Summer League is the type of structure where creating your own shot is a bonus.
Right.
And he struggles with that other than, he hit that mid-range, tough mid-range shot, right? That's what he's accustomed to, but he's not going to be bringing the ball up the court. He's not going to have the offense running through him. It's not the type of player he is. It might be the type of player he's billed at in the future, but currently he's not there. So for him, he's got to get hot from 3. If he's not knocking shots down, he's not going to look as good as a guy like Paolo who could do all the creation himself.
Yeah.
We're going to get into more about Jabari in a second, but Albert, I want to turn to you really quick and just ask you about Paolo. We've trying to talk about all the different layers to his offensive game, but really, I thought he did a great job last night of being assertive and aggressive in some areas while also being controlled and willing to get everybody else involved. Like, we saw him bring the ball up the floor and really embrace that big point forward style role. And 6 assists, the 2 turnovers, seeing that 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio right off the bat. I'd really like to see that. But I didn't really think he did anything too out of place on the offensive end overall last night. And then when you factor in, he did get to the line 5 times. He was 5 for 5 from the free throw line. I love to see that because that's more of what we've been talking about with Paolo all along through the draft process, was really is he going to be aggressive to get downhill and not only settle for some of those jumpers, which, yes, he settled for some of those shots last night, but I wanted to see that aggressiveness. I wanted to see him get to the line, get inside, do some more damage that way. What do you think about his offensive balance overall?
No, I agree with everything that you said. He was definitely assertive. He was going right at Jabari. I actually thought defensively there were a lot of possessions where he was really going at Jabari Smith. There was that one we watched in the second half where Jabari was trying to do some stuff with the ball in his hands, trying to handle, and Paolo just kind of stripped him, and it was pretty easy for him. And then there's also that one position, I'm sure you guys have seen it on Twitter, where Jabari was trying to go at Paolo and he blocked him at the rim. So I like that part of Paolo's game, the aggression on the defensive side. Then offensively too, like he did a lot of stuff, as you mentioned, got to the free throw line 5 times, got to the bucket, flashed a lot of passing last night. That I know you guys have talked about a lot on our website. Everyone who's written about Paolo talks about the underrated playmaking with him, and he flashed a lot of it. He threw a lot of nice dimes, threw a lot that didn't lead to points but led to fouls, and all that stuff is important. So he was aggressive in a lot of different ways, and as you mentioned, there was a tempered, measured approach as well. So a lot to be impressed with.
Nick, before we move into some of the Houston Rockets players, was there anybody else on Orlando who stood out to you besides Paolo or Caleb Houston, or do you have any other thoughts to add about those two guys specifically?
Well, the thing with Paolo, I think his most impressive pass tonight did not show up in that assist-to-turnover ratio that you mentioned. He had one pass where he basically did like a jump pass from the three-point line right into the rim, and of course, I mean, really, Josh Christopher blocked the shot, but it was called a foul. So we're going to go with that because that was what was officially called on the court, and there's not much we can do about that. But that was really the most impressive pass to me. Him being able to, not only pass from a standstill, but be able to pass on the move, be able to. I don't like, jump passes being the entirety of your passing repertoire, but the fact that he threw that one and just threw it right on a dime, that was really impressive to watch. And it's not exactly out of the ordinary for Paolo, but it's one thing for it to be something that you kind of expect from him, and another thing to see it in person in semi-NBA context.
So, Rucker, we started talking about Jabari Smith a little bit. Corey went into some of the differences between what we saw from Jabari and Paolo last night. I was a little underwhelmed with Jabari. I know there's that seems to be a zag a little bit. Like what I was seeing on social media was like Jabari, for the opportunities he got for what he was asked to do, a lot of people thought he actually had a decent outing. I don't know. I wanted to see a little more from him. He only took 10 shots on offense. He took 4 threes. He was only 1 of 4 from the three-point line. He had 7 rebounds. That's actually a pretty decent stat. But I don't want to pick apart some of the negatives on defense too much. A lot of these guys, they're just going to be bad on defense when they first come into the NBA. It's just a reality to it. I did think when he was guarding Paolo, he did get up in his face some, and he wanted to really play him aggressively on the defensive end. And before Paolo really got going, we saw off the tape, like it was going to be a little bit of a rough night for Paolo if he didn't really show more of that assertiveness and want to really go after Jabari, because Jabari is that gifted on the defensive side of the ball. But offensively, we saw a lot of the same concerns. He can't really handle the ball. He's not really going to be one of those dribble, create everything off the bounce guys. Like, you have to set him up for his looks, and if those shots are not falling, as Corey wanted to bring it back to make or miss league at different points, but really, if those shots aren't falling, what else is he really giving you on the offensive end right now if he's not able to do some of that stuff off the bounce to create for others?
I think, Corey was hinting at it, but I think Jabari's just going to be one of these guys at Summer League where he could have a game where he's hot from outside and everyone's going to go crazy, but he's still an unfinished product where you're going to want to pay attention to the flashes throughout Summer League. Like, you want to see Jabari lock in defensively. You want to see the mid-range game come alive, some off the dribble. He's going to not be this guy that's going to all of a sudden just dominate, because he still has to figure out the other levels of his game. It's the outside shot we know he's going to live off of, but he's got to figure out the in-between. He's got to figure out how to get in the basket, the playmaking. Like, there's going to be all these areas that he needs to get some run at Summer League, especially. And that's what we're saying. Like, a guy like Paulo is perfect for Summer League because he has all of these, handles and this craft to get his own shot. Jabari's going to need to have the game slow down, feel everything out. And he's one of those guys that he could struggle even as a rookie in the first couple of months, but it's the upside we've always been talking about.
I also want to say, Paulo has been the guy his whole life.
Yeah.
Jabari was not a guy that you were talking about preseason last year where you were like, he is a future number 1 option.
Right.
It's new to him.
Yeah.
And to be honest, he's not going to be the future number 1 option on Houston anyway.
Right.
Jalen Green is the 30-point scorer.
Yes.
In that context, he might look a little better. Look, I'm a Jake Up guy.
Yeah.
I was coming to turn to you about him in a second.
That's my guy. But he's not Jalen Green.
Right,
Like,
right.
he's not drawing the same amount of attention, regardless of if he's trying to take the same shots. He's not worrying the defense the same way Jalen Green is. He's not
Which he is trying to take the same shots, to be clear.
Which, let it fly, man. It's summer league. Let's go. But, that's not his game. Daishen Nix, great passer, great playmaker. But again, you're only so worried about him, even if he is driving into the paint. I know he can make the kickouts, but he's not causing havoc for the defense, forcing them to rotate. Neither are you that worried about Ty Washington right now. So it's just a different environment for a guy like Jabari versus a guy like Paolo, who's already used to the role he's playing. And Jabari he's going to play he's playing a similar role to what he's ultimately going to look like as a rookie
Right.
with worse players.
Yes.
Granted, a lot of those players are going to be the squad that Houston, has out on the court in the regular season, but you're missing the guy.
Yeah.
And for Orlando, Paolo's going to be the guy.
Yeah.
Jabari isn't.
One more thing I think is important, and it goes into this, and it goes into a lot of like overreactions in summer league, because that's all we do. I mean, we overreact about this, but that's what you're allowed to do. That's what you should do. They're basketball fans. All these guys have been doing months of interviews, pro workouts, one-on-one, playing against the empty chair, whatever, all that crap. And now you're playing basketball finally again. So that first game is this for some guys, they're ready to roll. Like Paulo looked great. He was, because he's used to being the guy, like Corey's saying. Jabari, all of a sudden, it's just like, hey, all right, welcome to the NBA. You haven't been playing a live game in a couple months. So I understand if that guy that's raw is going to maybe struggle, if you want to put it that way, in his first game.
That's
at the end of
point.
it, you just want to be ready to roll. Like at the end, you want to see the progressions throughout the week.
That's a great point too to make though about some of these top picks are for months they're just going on the media tour and they're doing all that kind of fanfare. They're not like some of these guys who don't have those same obligations, who can actually live in the gym and really continue to work on their craft as they get into summer league and really be able to prove themselves. That's actually a great point.
I appreciate it. I'm smart sometimes,
Emphasis on sometimes.
Sometimes.
I think it's also important to note Jabari Smith after the game, he did the post-game interview, whatever, in front of some cameras, and he was mentioning how he felt like himself, he wasn't asserting himself enough, right?
Yeah.
Which is an adjustment he's going to make on his own, and moving forward, if he asserts himself a little bit more, then he'll have more opportunity and he's going to look better. But I think the point that we're all trying to make is that ultimately the role that he's playing in summer league is going to look different when he plays with the big boys, with next to Jalen Green or whatever. And so he's definitely going to look better in a different context, I think, especially with the elite shooting. And he's going to have the runway and the time to eventually develop these skills that we're talking about, where he's lacking handle and shake or whatever. He's going to have time to work on that. So we are definitely not talking about any of these prospects in definitive terms. I think we can all agree on that. So.
Yeah. I've been talking about them definitively.
This is the entire story of Jabari Smith.
Well, since you are talking definitively about these prospects / players, Corey.
Yeah.
I knew I was coming to you. You know exactly where I'm going. Your boy Jacob. You're a big Josh Christopher guy heading into last year, and for not that we're going to harp on plus minus in a freaking summer league game, but he was the one guy who had a positive plus minus who played real minutes for the Rockets last night. He looked good, not just offensively. He looked good on both sides of the ball. That was really what I wanted to see was how is Josh Christopher going to approach defense coming into year two? He wanted to go out there and not just guard some guys, but he wanted to make plays on the ball, man. Like he was all over the place. And then offensively, we know that the shooting has to come around for him, but he was very assertive. He was getting downhill. He got to the line 8 times. He made 7 of those 8 free throws. Josh Christopher looks like he's really ready to come and be a legitimate rotation piece for the Rockets next year.
Well, that's the dirty little secret about Josh Christopher. Everybody watched him play with Alonzo Verge, who is a winner of the Ashton Higgins Award.
I was waiting for a first Alonzo Verge reference.
And so everybody got this, reputation of he's just like this chucker. And normally what you associate with that is a guy who only plays on one side of the ball. Mm-hmm. And the dirty little secret with Josh Christopher is that he defends, and he did in college. He did last year. He was one of the best shot blocking guards in his class. It's one of the things, when we did his episode of the Draft Act, I'm like, there are a lot of times that he looked like young Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Especially defensively with chase down blocks and whatnot. You saw he had 3 last night, plus the one that they didn't count, which was the highlight.
That was
so
real.
He's got the athleticism. He's strong and he's long. So defensively, he'll get in you. He plays with your chest. That's something we talk about all the time. It's something that we loved about Davion Mitchell. He's not giving you space. He's not letting the offensive player necessarily dictate what they are going to do. He is trying to disrupt you from even getting into your offense in any way. And he's also a second-year player. This is something that Rucker talks about all the time. Like, this is where these guys have the comfortability. They've been to Las Vegas in this environment before. They know what to do, where to go, should they go out and party before, whatever the amount of time. Like, they know how to handle themselves in this environment. So it's not surprising that he's the one guy who also was playing against NBA players the entire year who looked prepared for this event. Offensively, this is, he's been comfortable in this role forever. And he's 22 points on 18 shots, didn't shoot it super efficiently, but he got to the line 8 times, knocked 7 of them down. He looked good because he's a good guard in this league. That's what you're supposed to do when you're a good player. You're supposed to come in and play well in Summer League, and he has.
And it's what it looks like too. Like I said at the top, like it's how does he look getting to those spots, getting those shots up? Like does it look easy enough for him? Does it look like he's really going to take some steps forward in year 2? And I would certainly agree with that sentiment. Nick and Albert, I'll come to you guys about the rookie on this Houston Rockets squad who impressed me the most last night, Tari Eason. So for all that we can talk about how the jumper still needs to improve, like outside of the catapult 3-point shot last night, I think he did a lot of good things, not just on the offensive end, but defensively. I thought he was more disciplined than I really expected to see. Like we always talked about his defense before the draft, where he was like a gambling man, right?
Yeah,
like he would really go out there and try and lay out for some blocks or some steals, and like he would come up with some real bad whiffs to where they'd just be easy buckets for the team. I didn't see a lot of that last night. I saw a guy who really wanted to sit down and play some individual one-on-one defense. And then when you factor in what he did on the boards, he had 13 rebounds last night. Didn't have any steals or blocks.
Right.
But honestly, I think that's fine. I think that's fine for at least what I think the coaching staff wants to see from him was, are you going to take the defensive side of the ball seriously in the sense that you're going to sit down, you're going to guard somebody, you're going to do the dirty work, you're going to be patient, let these guys come to you where you can really overwhelm them with your size, your athleticism. Like, I wanted to see that from Tari, and I'm glad that I did. What did you think, Nick?
I mean, I think part of the thing with Tari is it was difficult to sort of separate how much of his defensive gambling was LSU scheme versus how much was
That's true.
Just a gambler on the defensive end.
That's the thing that when you're watching games you have to really pin down when you make your analysis, because you could be watching something and not actually understand what it is that you're watching defensively and think that a guy is making a mistake by going under a screen because the guy knocked it down.
Right.
When the coach is going, hey, this kid can't fucking shoot,
Yeah.
you have to go under them on the screens. And if he hits enough shots, you clap it up and you say congratulations. But we're going to keep the discipline, stick to our scheme because eventually he's going to miss.
Right.
Alex Fudge, that dude had ridiculous block steal percentages. Tari, ridiculous block steal percentages. If the coaching staff is like, hey, take chances, be aggressive, that isn't on the player, that's on the coach, because they're not looking at this from an NBA perspective. Tari Eason wasn't an NBA prospect necessarily coming into the year, right? He just exploded onto the scene at LSU. You have to take into account what that scheme was like and what they might look like given their tools and their physical gifts in a different structure. And that's why you're seeing that with Tari. For me, like I think I was one of the higher guys on Tari throughout the process. Sometimes it's nice to like look at nuance. I love it, right, as a coach specifically. But also the NBA is about physical tools that you can't teach.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of them.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think, and Nick, I'll let you get back in here, but I think what I saw from Tari last night justified, I think, where he got drafted and like relatively where I had him, because that's the range, 17 about roughly. Like that's where I had him on my board. I thought he was picked in the right range because there were some things where you want to bet on some of the tools. There were enough things where there were more riskier propositions to bet on about his game and some of the nuances. But overall, like he was still going to be a top 20 pick, and I'm glad that he was. And he got to really show some good things last night, which did.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Tari, too, is, like, he does have the physical tools to, get away with some of those gambles more than maybe potentially other players. But the fact that he wasn't really gambling all that much, the fact that he was so aggressive on the boards. I also really like some of the passes he was throwing out last night. The catapult shot is one thing, and that's certainly a long-term thing that maybe he should work on a little bit. But, in terms of the offensive game and his sort of fit in Houston, as we were talking about with Jalen Green being an engine of the offense, Josh Christopher taking a lot of shots, Jabari presumably being a little more aggressive than he was last night, especially since he was saying, I got to be more aggressive going forward. I mean, if Tari really just decides, okay, you know what, I'm going to crash the glass, I'm going to put in the effort on the defensive end while trying to stay solid, not make too many gambles, and, sling the ball around whenever the ball reaches my hands, that's going to work really well for him. And that's something that he can do. I mean, as we saw last night, he can do basically right away.
That's something that the Houston Rockets, Albert, they don't really have that on their team right now in that same body, with that same athleticism, that same profile. So the fact that Houston might have found one of those guys, which it seems like their fan base that for months was just clamoring for them to draft Tari Eason with the 2 other picks outside the top 3, it must be really relieving for them to think man, we actually have one of these guys that the NBA is looking for that really fits positional archetype that everybody wants.
I feel like ideally the stat line that he had, that's kind of what they're hoping for eventually, right? A little 14-point game, 15-point game, 13 rebounds, 10 rebounds, a couple of assists, some steals and blocks. I think that's all they're really hoping for. I like the fact that he took 9 threes, not shy. Right, you like shy. That, and also I don't mind the catapult shot as much because Trey Murphy, right, has a similar shot, and I have no problem with Trey Murphy. Ben Gordon, right? Yeah. So I'm okay with it. I'm hoping that, obviously I'm not saying it's perfect. There's obviously things to work out, but I like that he was aggressive. I like that he wasn't shy. I like that he influenced the game. 13 boards is still 13 boards. Say it's Summer League, whatever. At least he's getting in there, mixing it up, trying to do stuff, and then the 14 points, whatever. That's just the cherry on top. So it's nice that he had an influence on the game, that he was aggressive, that he wasn't shy. He didn't have first game jitters. Nick, what you mentioned, some of the passing, the playmaking, right? Something I know Steven, one of our colleagues, Steven, loved that about Tari Eason's game at LSU. He thought that was a part of his game that he showed little spurts of, but wasn't able to do all the time, right? And if he does more of that here with the Rockets in the next level as a third tertiary type of creator, that's awesome. So I think there's a lot to be excited about with Eason.
Anything you saw that stood out to you with Ty Washington, the other rookie? Anything to write home about? Or
so I think the interesting.
How many times last night did we say, "Oh wow, Ty Washington's on the court"?
Exactly. There was a lot of him not being very present on the court. He was almost the polar opposite of Tari Eason, where Tari Eason would kind of force himself onto the scene, and we'd notice him, but Ty would kind of vanish a little bit. But it's early, right? We're not saying that this is the type of player that Ty is going to be. This is not like the Tobias Harris syndrome, where
I think it is.
You bite your tongue about the Long Island legend Tobias Harris.
But Russillo talks about them all the time, right? And what they used to think of Andrew Wiggins and stuff, they just kind of float whatever. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's what Ty Washington will be, but that's what he was last night.
I think that was who he was at Kentucky though, and that's sort of the issue. Unless he has the ball in his hands almost exclusively, and he's asked to do everything for everybody else, set the table, be the only guy, not Josh Christopher handling the ball or Daisha Nix, but Ty Washington really taking that role and creating for everybody else as well as creating for himself. Off the ball, he can get lost in the flow a little bit, he can get lost in the shuffle, and that's what we saw at Kentucky. He only had a handful of games or less where I really looked at him and I was like, man, this is what he could be as a point guard, a starting NBA point guard for a team. And the fact that he started off the year a little slow and then he had a little bit of the injury bug, we didn't get to see more of that. So I think that's the player that we're still looking for him to be, and that's not the guy that we saw last night. Now,
but the context too, right?
So exactly. So in his defense, he was playing with a bunch of other guards who dominated the ball
even
last
night,
night, and even in Kentucky, he was playing next to Severe Wheeler. So we have to see more of that from him. I don't know if it's going to be there to justify him maybe having been taken higher than where he got taken at 29. We don't know the answer to that question yet, Rucker. But anything else that stood out to you about Ty, or what you want to see from him maybe later on in the Summer League?
No, those are the guys that I had Ty a little bit lower on my board than I think a lot of people did, but you want to just see as much of a sample as you can, because it's easy for the first game he looks like he doesn't stand out. I always say it's the terrifying thing when you don't realize they're on the court. Mm-hmm. And last night we had a couple times where we were like, oh my gosh, he's in the game. Right. But let's see if he can get comfortable. Let's see if he takes a step forward in the next game and looks way better and gets a little bit more run. Also important with Summer League is sometimes these sophomores and guys, they sit out. So all of a sudden it opens up the opportunity for more minutes for these rookies. And Ty's another guy. We've said it before. Even if we're lower on a guy, we're rooting for him. We're rooting for all these guys, and we want to be wrong. We want to be wrong with some of these. So it'll be it'll be interesting to see what he can do with a little bit more run, because the first game I was like, okay, looks what I expected, but see how he does in the other games.
And really quickly, just to piggyback off what you're saying, I feel like he's going to shoot it well enough off the catch, and like I think it's as you mentioned, right, the run thing.
Yeah.
I think they just need to play with him more and kind of learn more about his game and get him more acclimated.
Where his spots on the floor,
Right,
where
right,
he like to operate.
So as like a secondary creator, shooting off the catch, like his influence will grow over time. I think first game jitters, feeling each other out. They've got all these rookies, all these second year guys, so I think he'll be okay.
He did hit a really nice floater in the lane last night.
Yeah.
Something that we
Which
know
he's
that's
good
part
at,
of his
yeah.
game. Yeah. So
And beyond Summer League, I mean, we were talking about this with Jabari Smith, but I think it applies to Ty Washington a lot as well. He's going to look a lot better when he's got Jalen Green alongside him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right, so that was our piece about the Rockets and the Magic. There was a second game last night for some of my East Coasters. Maybe they didn't stay up to watch that game because that was at midnight Eastern time. I know.
Soft.
Me being Grandpa Nate, I don't know if I would have stayed up for it or not. But
Coffee. Look it up.
all right. I guess I need to get some more late night coffee in my life so I never go to sleep. All right.
Yeah, there you
let's
go.
learn
That's all
from
we need.
But
so
second game, Trailblazers against the Pistons. Nick, there are so many directions that we could go in terms of talking about individual performances. We had the Shane Sharp debut or lack thereof. We had some second-year guys get into it like Keon Johnson and Greg Brown for the Blazers. I'm going to shout out a second-round pick of theirs probably a little later on in the segment. Then you can go on the Pistons side. They had a lot of fun rookie debuts. What was the one thing, as we kind of go around the room a little bit, what was the one thing that stood out to you the most from that game last night?
Wow. So it's funny because Jaden Ivey had the best stat line in this game, and I certainly thought he had some really impressive moments in that game, and certainly in the fourth quarter he looked really good. The first three quarters he had ups and downs, I'd say, but the player that stood out to me the most by far last night was Jalen Duren. He stepped on the court, and within moments he was throwing down alley-oops. He was just it looked easy for him, and there was also the one moment where he threw a wraparound pass to a guy in the corner where we talked about
Beef stew.
Not
comfortable enough, not with that quick release yet.
There you go. But, we talk about his playmaking as something that was sort of an underrated aspect of Jalen Duren's game. And, Rucker mentioned this last night after maybe his third or fourth alley-oop, where it's like, that's really all he needs to do.
Yeah.
And, he showed right away in game one that if he can just continue to do what he did in that game, then that's, a really solid baseline for a rookie. And if he develops from there, great. But honestly, given that, Cade and Jaden Ivey are going to be running the show, he doesn't really need to do much more than that. He's already shown that in game one of Summer League.
I really think that we're going to look back on Jalen Duren a couple years from now and go, why did we overthink the 6'10", 7'5" wingspan?
You were saying that for months.
Athletic freak who was a year younger than all of his peers and got significantly better as the season went along. Why did we overthink that? That was crazy. And we're going to look at his draft position and be like, oh my God, this guy over him, like that was silly. And you already saw, he's already physically imposing against other guys that are more physically imposing in college. I don't think that's going to change at the next level either. Obviously there are more guys that'll be of similar tier, but he's still most nights going to be, as an 18-year-old kid, the most physically imposing guy on the court. And just imagine when he's 24 and he's been in the NBA
6 years.
He's going to be ridiculous. And his baseline, this is it's the DeAndre Jordan theory. His baseline is just higher than some guard that you're taking that has so many variables that need to hit for him to just be a contributor. Jalen Duren, all he's got to do is keep the game simple: rebound, block shots, dunk the ball when it's given to him.
I do want to see more than one rebound in 12 minutes.
Yeah,
that was my only nitpick from last night, but I think he did do.
Well, when you're playing next to Isaiah Stewart, sometimes it's going to be hard to gobble up some rebounds.
I mean, Duren looked like he had 20 last night, and he had 9 points.
Right.
He only played 12
minutes. He had 9 points in 12 minutes. That's
good production.
But this is also I agree with Corey, and this is why we were overthinking Duren, but we always talk about how important fit is with the draft. And the moment the Pistons made that trade, it was yes, perfect for this kid, because they're going to simplify his role early on. They're just going to be play hard, rebound, dunk the ball, catch everything, block shots.
Yeah.
And they're going to put confidence. They're going to install confidence in this young kid, and that's going to develop him perfectly. That's going to be awesome for him because he doesn't need to score a ton. He Kate Cunningham's going to do that. Ivy's going to do that. He's going to take a lot of shots like we saw last night. Sadiq Bey, like
Killian Hayes.
Never too late. So Duren was very impressive last night. I thought he looked outstanding. I thought he looked the best out of anyone on the team. I know what Jaden Ivey did.
I'm going to touch on beef stew definitely in a second here.
We have to talk about beef stew.
We have. But Albert, I'm going to kick it over to you because we do have to talk about Jaden Ivey. Nick referenced that he had the best stat line on the night, right? Technically by counting numbers, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Did have 5 turnovers. I think he clearly has some work to do as far as being a point guard, being more of a table setter, but we did see some of that raw scoring ability last night. And then when you factor in some of the shots he was able to make, he was 2 of 5 from 3-point range. Like the way he can just do things from a scoring standpoint within the flow of an NBA game, like we knew it was going to be special coming in, and we saw some of those good flashes last night. What do you think about Jaden Ivey?
Before, when we were talking about Paolo, Nick had mentioned he threw some sick jump pass, right? And at the end, you said, well, we don't want him doing that every time. Jaden Ivey last night chose to only jump pass. So that was an interesting decision on his end. But no, there were obviously some flashes, a ton of him just falling over and sliding into second base all over the game. But hey, that first possession, they got going downhill through the nice alley to Jalen Duren, and you go, okay, cool. Like this is like a little glimpse into what this could look like, right? So clearly some flashes when he was like in the open floor, getting to the rim was pretty and fast and explosive and all the stuff that we liked on tape. But he clearly had there's some growing to do, clearly. As Corey been talking about this all the time. Like if we're thinking of Jaden Ivey straight up as like a lead guard, then he's a little bit away from that right now. He's not playing with a lot of pace. He's playing with one pace, which is like supersonic speed, right? But he's got to find something in between a little bit, work on the jump passes, and the shooting could be a little. I mean, there was one where it hit the backboard and the side of the rim and made this just wretched sound. So
the FUD. We all love the FUD.
He's got some growing to do for sure. But you see the flashes, and every time he had an unbelievable moment, Nick was screaming in the room. So
he closed the game off. Really. He was really impressive at the end of the game. He split a double, got to the hoop. He was making an effort to do that. But like you said, if you have it in your head that he's going to be a point guard, I think you're going to be overall disappointed with his career.
Right.
If you have it in your head that he's just going to be a guy who's much more score first, who can make plays,
Quick decisions. I think right now we got to get like you referenced that alley-oop, right? He's got to be involved in more of those play types where like the decision he has to make is just very quick within the flow of the offense. If you have him like at the top of the court and you're asking him to stand around with the ball in his hands and figure everything out,
the difference is that's a set play. They came out, ran him off the curl from a secondary action in the corner. It's not even a quick decision; it's preordained, right?
Sure.
Because he's drawing the attention.
What
he needs, the quick decisions he needs to make are when the ball swings my way, do I need to hold on to this and create my own shot, or can I make that one more pass to Isaiah Livers?
Right. I mean,
that's the thing he needs to figure out.
The other side of this point guard discussion, though, as Rucker referenced earlier with Jalen Duren, I mean, Jaden Ivey is going to be playing alongside Kate Cunningham, right? Like, how many primary point guard minutes is he even going to get?
Right, he's not.
And he doesn't need
Killian Hayes.
To an extent, he doesn't need a ton of them because, his natural scoring ability, I think, is what they're looking to pair with Cade Cunningham and him being able to get downhill, be a threat transition, like him being the complement to Cade, that he does a lot of things that Cade just naturally doesn't do because he's not that type of athlete. I think that's what they were looking to pair, and that's what we all talked about for weeks leading into the draft. That's what Detroit needed. So
he's just going to have to learn how to, like Albert said, he's playing with one speed right now. And I think when you have elite speed, you can either, when you're taking that next jump to the NBA, you either want to play faster, and sometimes it doesn't need to happen. You just need to learn how to shift gears. And we've seen Ivy has that, like going back to Purdue. It's just now when you're making that jump and everything's faster, you want to turn it up another notch where it's like, no, he just needs to play composed. And
it's not like natural for him right now, though.
Right.
Like I'll lean to you two to talk about. Well, if you want to jump into,
I think the best analogy is if you guys watch baseball, you watch all these teams and they bring up like a high-end prospect pitcher, right? the kid has 101, 103 mile per hour fastball, but the secondary stuff is just not there, right? Over time, he works it out, learns how to throw a slider, a changeup, a curveball, and then those off-speed pitches will accentuate the speed of the fastball. If he's only throwing the fastball, then you can learn to catch up to it. You guys are former baseball players. If you're seeing one pitch over and over again, you're going to adjust, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have any of the secondary stuff right now. Can't throw a slider, can't throw a changeup, has no sinker, none of that stuff. He's just throwing a 98, 99 mile per hour fastball every single time, and teams are like, okay, this is the NBA, we can adjust to that. That's
But I think he has it.
Yeah,
I think he's just last night he was just like,
yeah.
I gotta play fast.
You made the good point. And this is, you'll see it whether you're going from middle school to JV, JV to
Right.
varsity to college. When you get to the next level, everybody is so much more athletic
Yeah.
than they were at the previous level.
Right.
And Jaden Ivey's still more athletic than the people at this level, but he, in his head, is seeing things move faster than they did in college. Guys
So he's trying to adjust.
they're
Yes.
rotating quicker. They
Exactly.
might not be rotating quick enough to deal with him, but they're still rotating a little
Right,
bit quicker. So
right.
he's like, I have to go quicker. But he doesn't.
Right.
He just has to, and I say this all the time, when you think the game fast, you can play the game slow.
Yeah.
He's not there where he's thinking the game fast because everything is coming at him so fast. And again, he's another one of these guys. How many workouts was he going in there and competing with guys?
Right,
Probably very few,
Right.
if any. He hasn't played a game since the tournament, right? So he's got to get used to not only the speed of a higher level, but just getting back in a rhythm of playing organized basketball.
Right.
And it's John Wooden. Just be quick, but don't be in a hurry.
Right.
And every guard that's coming to the NBA as a rookie is trying to be in a hurry because they're trying to make those decisions fast, like Corey says.
Which is crazy because literally the game's best decision-making guard is 100 years old and plays slower than anybody,
Yes.
and that's Chris Paul.
Right.
Because he's so smart that he knows every decision before it's going to happen. He's already, I'm going to come off a screen going to my right. That means that if I get downhill, the guy from the weak side corner is going to be cheating to the hoop. That means I know my guy is open in the corner. If he's being overplayed by the wing defender, that means my guy in the wing, he's going to be open. These guys don't know that yet because they also have to deal with the variables of guys are reaching in, they're sliding over, and they're not comfortable enough with the speed. Eventually, he'll get comfortable enough, and again, he's going to have Cade and other guys to make those tough decisions.
Who's really good at that.
So he's just got to learn to get comfortable and realize he doesn't have to go 100 miles an hour. And I think he was doing that. I think at the end of the game, he was still playing fast, but he was much more decisive in his decisions, that it was a little bit more in control than early on when he was jumping up in the air hoping that he could make some kind of play happen.
Absolutely.
Rucker, we got to talk about, as I said, beef stew. And that fit in the front court between him and Duran. Because what we saw last night, that could work, right? Like if Stewart is spacing the floor for everybody else, letting Duran have the free rolls to the paint off the pick and roll, or he's going up for a lob. And then defensively, you have a guy in Duran who we would project to be a more switchable big man, and you can let Stewart kind of roam the paint and kind of help out on that end, will also be the defensive rebounder, the enforcer on the glass. That pairing can really work. And the fact that Isaiah Stewart came out, he had 13 points, 9 rebounds, he was 3 or 4 from three-point range. Like now, all of a sudden, we're sitting with a really intriguing front court, because I think you looked at the Pistons and they drafted Duran. You didn't see a clean fit for that 4-man spot, right? Like Kelly Olynyk's still on the roster. Like Sadiq Bey can technically play up a position, but like Isaiah Stewart could be that 4-man if that's going to be his position, who could really benefit from playing somebody with like Duran and vice versa. What did you think about what you saw from Beef Stew last night?
I thought he looked. We were all watching the game, and I think I even mentioned to you guys. I was like, he looks slimmed down. Like, I wonder if they even told him we want you to play the 4 next year, because right away he popped off the screen because I was like, he's moving really quick. I was like, did he lose weight? He just looks in great shape. I think he's got a real shot to work.
Like Cavaliers, like Kevin Love type role for him.
Yeah,
that's.
I mean, I love Beef Stew. I mean, all types of Beef Stew. I love Isaiah Stewart. I think I was very high on him as a prospect. I think he's going to be great for Duran. I think they're going to be a great match. I think it could work where if you put Stu at the 4, like, he was funny because he kept taking threes last night. We're like, whoa, what's going on, Beef? Like, all right, add a little sauce to the Beef Stew. But
I'm going to zag here.
Oh,
no,
stop.
Look,
Oh,
there's
cancel the trip.
There's no NBA world that you could play Killian Hayes, Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, and Isaiah Stewart on an NBA floor and think it's going to work.
No,
Because
we're playing all of them except Killian Hayes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're not
Keep
like
talking about Killian Hayes. Stop trying to make Killian Hayes happen. It's not going to happen.
all right, so you add Sadiq Bey, like whatever you want to do. There's just not enough spacing on the floor. Ultimately,
What
I
if
think-
Isaiah Stewart keeps shooting like this?
he's
though?
not going to.
Are you
I'm gonna be
thinking
real.
rotation then? Are you thinking they're going to bring Duren as
I think. Well, look, if Isaiah Stewart's going to be the starter, I think it's a mistake. To me, you bring him off the bench. Jalen Duren is your future.
I was having a good trip.
Isaiah Stewart is a nice player.
Yeah.
He's nice. He could help you off the bench. That's great. If he's going to be a starter, for me, ultimately, I'm not letting him chase around fours all night. He's not chasing around Paul George or Kawhi Leonard. I'm sorry. That's not my game plan as a coach. And there's only so many teams right now that are doing the Gobert, Cat, Twin Towers thing.
But what if Duren's that guy playing more on the perimeter?
He is not. So now that we got that over with, we can go back to Beef Stew, who is a nice player on a rookie contract, and ultimately they are going to move off of. It might not be this year, okay, but it's going to be the future because either Isaiah Stewart is going to be fine being a productive bench player, and if you're telling me that's the move, great. He can come in. Maybe he does play a little bit with with Jalen Duren when the opportunity arises.
Right.
But he is strong enough, even at his height, and long enough to deal with centers enough that he can swing back and forth depending on the lineup. But ultimately, I still think even if he is knocking down shots, are you expecting him to be Kevin Love-esque as a shooter? I'm not. Even if with improvement. That's a really tough ask, man. And if you're telling me he's just going to consistently be a 45% three-point shooter on high volume, maybe it could work. But I just don't see it. And I love him. I love the energy. I love the toughness. He's a badass motherfucker. You need those guys on your team, especially when other personality-wise, like Cade's kind of soft-spoken.
Right.
He's smooth. He's confident, but he's not boisterous. Killian Hayes.
Again with the
Yeah,
Can we stop it?
I need Sadiq Bey's Villanova guy. They're not loud. You need these guys on your team. You need one crazy guy, right? We need a Rucker on our squad to be crazy.
Which member of your family is Killian Hayes holding on?
I need Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren to be the modern age Bill Laimbeer and Rick Mahorn. That's what I need them to be.
boy.
So that's where I'm.
The Pistons don't want. The Pistons don't want to win games. They don't want to win games next year, so they're going to experiment with it, and you're probably going to have fun moments. But I'm guessing if you're looking at the on-off numbers at the end of the year, it's probably not going to be some of their best lineups. You just invested, okay, in Jaden Ivey, who the whole thing was like, you know what, NBA spacing. He's really gonna. Yeah. If I'm a defender, if I'm a coach of an opposing team, I'm like, hey, Isaiah Stewart wants to beat us tonight. Let's let him beat us tonight. I'm sagging off Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah.
Even if he knocks down 4 threes, I'm sagging off of him. I'm going to overcheat and help. I want to space the floor for these guys as much as possible. Cade too. I want the floor spaced for him. We saw what all of that spacing did for a guy like Luka in the playoffs, who is one of the top 3 to 5 players in the league. Mm-hmm. Space this floor out, and there's just too many similarities that aren't theoretical, that are realistic and tangible and not theoretical right now.
So
and I love Isaiah Stewart. I'm just saying, I think I love him more in a different situation.
So the best 5 would be like Ivy, Bey, Livers, Cade, and Duren.
I don't know if I'm ready to throw Livers in right away, but
I will not handle this Piston slander right now. I did not
Are we
expect.
so you're playing Kelly Olynyk with Jalen Duren. That's basically that's the other option at the 4. Or you're playing, as Albert said,
Okay.
you're Isaiah Livers or
I'm gonna warn everyone: if we start slandering Kelly Olynyk,
All right.
I'm getting out.
I'm not-
When do we start talking about Buddy Boeheim as a starter?
There
All
we
right.
go. There it is.
All right.
Killian Hayes and Buddy Boeheim was not how I thought we were starting out the Vegas experience, but here we are.
But look,
Two-way
Olynyk,
contract.
you can make jokes about him. He is a real tangible NBA player that
he's a legitimate shooter.
Who is just going to fit what you want more so than Isaiah Stewart. But Isaiah Stewart's young and he's cheap.
Yeah.
And
He's in his second year, man.
and I understand that, but sometimes we can't overcomplicate what basketball is. Sometimes you just have to stop making things up in your head of what it could be and realize what it probably is.
Yeah.
And when you do that, it's actually going to help everybody else's development. I'm not fucking up the number 5 pick in the draft because I want to prove that Beef Stew can shoot threes. I'm not doing that. There's too much investment in players that have a much higher ceiling than Isaiah Stewart, who's going to be fine his whole career. And if you are fine your whole career, you're going to play for over 10 years, make a shit ton of money, probably have moments in the playoffs, and that's amazing. But, I mean, look, this is an extreme example. Look what happens when you spend money on Kendrick Perkins instead of something that makes a little bit more sense because you think this is how it's supposed to be played. Mm-hmm. You fuck your team out of a championship. Yeah. I'm not fucking up the development of the Detroit Pistons for Isaiah Stewart. Yeah.
So for our listeners out there, I did not expect the impassioned rant from Corey today to come about Isaiah Stewart, but nonetheless.
Well, he's been thinking the same thing about Emmanuel Quickly for years too, right?
I like Quickly a lot.
Dude, there can't be two more similar players in the NBA than Emmanuel Quickly and Isaiah Stewart.
Exactly.
Your new friend.
Twins.
I'm not going to go to a specific person on this one. I'm just going to open up the floor. Whoever wants to chime in, I think everybody probably has something to say about. If we shift to the Blazers, the Shaedon Sharpe situation, playing 5 minutes last night. He's apparently going to be getting an MRI today. We don't know what the results are regarding the shoulder. Didn't really get to see him do much of anything on the court. He took 3 shots. I feel like he only took that one where it was that nice step back along the baseline. Like, that was a good shot. That was a pro-level shot, but we didn't really see his teammates try to get him involved too much in those 5 minutes. I don't really know what he was doing on the defensive side of the ball. Like, we talked about Ty Washington floating a little bit. I think it was that's what we saw a little bit from Shaedon Sharpe in those minutes he was on the court, which I expected to see that. I expected him to float around a little bit, not really know how to assert himself in an NBA game, because he's jumping up like multiple levels compared to some of these other top prospects, right? Like it is going to be a transition for him, and now we have to factor in some of the health stuff. We hope that he's okay. We hope that he can come back sooner rather than later. But what should Portland Trailblazers fans be thinking about the Shaedon Sharpe situation right now?
I don't think there's much for them to think about, honestly. We didn't see all that much. He floated around for 5 minutes. He floated an alley-oop into the 13th row, and he had that nice step back from baseline, and that was about it.
I'm not making fun of him. That pass was incredible that he threw out of bounds. He missed by like 12 feet.
But he was willing to throw the pass.
Yeah, but he was willing to pass it. So we're taking big forward.
Honestly, given how off it was, are we sure it wasn't a shot?
No. Sharpe is the guy you want to see where he started at, and by the end of Summer League, you want to just see like way more confidence. I think it's going to be. I hope he plays again.
If he plays again,
yes. I hope he plays again. I hope he's healthy. He's just going to have some growing pains, but he also had we were commenting on some of the mistakes he made last night, and then he had that turnaround, and we were like, "Whoa!"
That's a real shot.
Yeah. I think there's going to be. You want to stick to the flashes with Sharpe, because that's where it's like, okay, build off that, get the speed down, because everything. We're talking about Ivy going out of control. Everything's going to seem 5 times faster for Sharpe right now because of that jump. So I think if you're a Blazers fan, just hope he's healthy. Maybe he doesn't play the next game. Maybe he plays the next 2 or whatever, and then.
What did Jaylen Brown average his first year in the league?
Like
7 points. 7 points a game, something like that. Sharpe is the guy that you could, on draft night, be like, oh my God, I can't believe they didn't just take Dyson Daniels.
Right.
Dyson Daniels, he's a great player. He's going to impact winning. He's never going to have the potential impact that Shaedon Sharpe is going to have if he hits. It's just not there. And in the league, Derek White, really nice player. He was not the difference between the Celtics winning and losing necessarily, right? You need Jaylen Brown. Oh, my second guy, Jason Tatum, he's not having it tonight, right? Jaylen Brown stepping up and putting in 25 in a finals game now. Shaedon Sharpe has the potential to have that kind of impact, right? And that's why the Blazers are taking that shot on a guy that everybody deemed as more of a mystery. They felt confident enough in their evaluation that Shaedon has the ability to one day either be the guy just in case Dame, asks out, or that he could develop even alongside Dame, maybe be the successor, whatever, and have that kind of tangible impact. You're just not going to get that with other players. But nobody said it's going to be easy. Nobody said it's going to look great from the start. And this is a guy who hasn't played organized basketball in over a year. So he's going to come in. He's trying to find his way. He probably doesn't want to do too much, pick his spots. And he only played 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, think about, even at the most basic level, when we're sitting at home during the height of the quarantine period, and none of us have played pickup hoops, and then the first time you go to play fives, what the hell happened? You're like, oh God, like, what part of the backboard did my shot hit?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that. He hasn't played organized hoops outside of like, you know, the 3-on-3 workouts or whatever, probably in a really long time. It's to be expected that he's not going to look as polished as some of these other guys.
Right.
You know who did look polished last night? Was Keon Johnson.
Yes.
For the Blazers. And he had 5 turnovers. He made some mistakes, sure. But he also
Polished is strong.
Yeah.
But he looked good.
He looked like a different player.
Looked all right.
This is what tying this into Sharp, and I know Nathan, you're going on about Keon. Keon looked like what Sharp could be next year at this time. Like Sharp could be a developmental rookie year, like almost a redshirt year, and then come to summer league and that first game be like, "Fuck all of you!
Yeah.
I'm the guy. Look at how ready I am," and put up 35.
And then he shuts it down.
And then they shut him down right away. And that's like the dream, because then he works his ass off in the off season. But he also could show some flashes during his rookie year. I'm not saying he's not going to be ready at all. I'm just saying Keon looked way better from what we saw last year at Summer League. And that's what I like to see with some of these sophomores, because you can see who's been working their ass off. And it's great to see it pay off on the
So he had 21 points on 8 for 17 shooting, 2 of 6 from 3-point range. We want to continue to see steady improvement on that deep shot. But yeah, how assertive he is, how comfortable he looked scoring the ball last night. Like, I'm just taking a look at the Portland Trailblazers depth chart. Like
5 turnovers.
All right. Everybody settle down about the summer league turnovers. All right, but so you got
summer league sloppy. You're going to turn the ball over.
Right.
It's also amazing when you get 10 fouls in Summer League. So Trendon Watford almost fouled out last night. He hit 7.
Well, we could have mentioned fouls with every big name that we talked about up to this point, especially that first game, wasn't there like 57 fouls or some crazy thing like that called? Yeah. So just take a look at like the Blazers starting lineup heading next year. You got Dame, you got Simons, you got Josh Hart, Jeremy Grant, Yusuf Nurkic, right? Some combination of those guys. Then you have Mr. Little coming off the bench. Gary Payton's going to come off the bench. We're trying to figure out what we're going to get from Sharp. There's another big that's going to have to step in there at some point. But the fact that we can look at Keon and be like, wow, could this Blazers team actually go like potentially 10 guys deep during the regular season, which is important because for whatever reason, we know the Trailblazers just seem to have an injury curse. Like
I was like 10 guys deep
like,
and in the shallow end of the pool is what we're talking
all right.
about.
We are. I'm trying to be so positive for Keon. And we're actually turning it down.
I understand what you're saying.
I want to see this team be able to find depth in certain areas because eventually, like some guys are going to need to be able to step up. And the Trailblazers, this is a team that wants to make the playoffs, and you have to have available bodies during the regular season who can actually play to help you reach that goal. So I'm just looking at this as like, if we keep seeing this from Keon through the rest of Summer League, like, is he going to be one of these guys where you can turn to him if you need him, and he can maybe help do some things in the regular season? All right,
Here's my count, and I agree with what you're saying theoretically, but here's my worry with certain players in a Summer League environment where they're getting more on-ball reps and they're looking to be the guy on the team. This is most certainly not going to be his role at the NBA level in real NBA games. So
sure, he's an off-ball guy.
He's an off-ball guy who needs to be cutting. Like, I would much rather see him being effective without the ball in his hands, knocking down spot-up threes, cutting to the hoop, getting out in transition, things that are actually going to translate. The on-ball stuff is fun. It's cool. It's nice to talk about in the Summer League setting. Yeah. But how is he going to play with Damian Lillard? Right. Is he going to be handling on-ball creation reps? Never. He's not going to, right? Like, with him and Anthony Simons, like, he's not doing that. Mm-hmm. So what I want to see, like, defensively, actually, can you switch and guard some bigger guys? Because he's listed at 6'4", but I don't think he measured that at the combine. Like, that was one of the things. People were like, oh, he's actually, like, the height of a point guard. And that was, like, his calling card. Like, can he be this defensive pest? But he's not one of these big switchy wings. He's actually, like, a really thin-framed, like, small guard. Right. I want to see him guard up, and I want to see him play off ball. And that's not the sexy thing to do in Summer League, especially when you're the second-year player who's been working on his game. I'm not saying you shouldn't have those games and strive to be that type of player. Right now, unless Dame gets traded, he's not getting those opportunities. Yep. So I would rather see him focus on not being the scorer that he is, actually doing tangible things that is going to get him on the court. Because this style is not going to help get him on the court necessarily.
Well, you're not going to see that in Summer League when it's Shane Sharp's going out and Brandon Williams is the other guard and starting lineup.
You're really sleeping on Colby Ross over here.
All right. Anybody else have any other thoughts about Keon?
There was a summer when Kevin Knox went off. Just want to throw that out there. So let's think about that.
We need to stop.
There was a summer
Yeah.
when Kevin Knox went off.
Let's keep the Kevin Knox talk.
Keon Johnson, I think theoretically, he obviously has very different measurables from Tari Eason, but he should be trending toward that type of role, right? Off ball, playing defense, shooting, off the catch once in a while. But Keon is not. Look, I'm not a Keon hater, but maybe I am. I have no idea.
Not a Keon hater, but 5 minutes of Keon hate.
Can I ask you a question, Nathan?
Yeah.
Were you done, Albert? I'm sorry.
I'm done.
Let's get away from the Keon mania. Who are you excited to watch today? We got a good slate of games. I want to hear who Nathan Grubel is excited to watch today.
So we actually do have a decent slate of games. So the big day is really going to be coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
I think there's a number of games that we can talk about today. I think Hornets Pacers is really going to be the first one that we're really getting up now.
Okay. If anyone talks about LiAngelo for longer than 5 minutes, the table's getting flipped. So.
Speaking of ball player, Albert.
There's a legitimate narrative to that game though. It's kind of fun for the fans and everybody paying attention to play into because Ben Mathurin said some big words in an interview.
Oh, I didn't hear this.
I mean, I'm not trying to be that one guy like. He basically wanted LeBron James to prove that.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
At this point in his career, is LeBron James better than Ben Mathurin? Because every time Ben Mathurin steps on the court, he thinks he's the best player on the court. Like, he'd love to see that confidence. Well, let's have some fun at first game of Summer League. Let's see a little bit of that today. I want to see what kind of juice Ben Mathurin has in that matchup against the Hornets. So the Hornets, they have some interesting guys to throw out. They have a number of second-year players, some real athletes who are going to go at guys like Ben Mathurin. What's Andrew Nembhard looking like coming in? Is he going to help lead that Summer League team to a little bit more prosperity than some could initially realize when they look at the roster? So yeah, I want to see Hornets Pacers today. That's my first game. What about you, Rucker? What game are you looking for?
I'm actually really wanting to see that game. I like what?
Nets Bucks.
No.
I want to see Mark on both games.
Suns Lakers definitely top my list.
Who's that? I want to see Alanis Williams.
Yeah,
That's the guy I'm watching for.
No, I mean, I want to see Charlotte. I like a lot of their guys coming back. As sophomores, I obviously want to see Mark Williams, Bryce McGowan. Anyone, I haven't seen the injury update, so sorry if they've officially announced that people aren't playing.
The Kai Jones.
He was really showing some signs in the G League to end the year. I want to see what he's like. He also looked like he put on some good weight. JT Thor, Scotty Lewis.
Scotty Lewis forever. I will never leave.
I like that team, and then like you're saying, also Nathan, like Indiana's got a squad too. I like some guys.
Isaiah Jackson's going to be getting run.
Isaiah Jackson,
Andrew
Nembhard, Duarte. Like that's going to be a fun game. Yeah, I think that's my one.
Corey, give us the Mavs Bulls preview since you're a Bulls guy. I know that there's some guys that you want to see.
I mean, I just want to see Dalen Terry and Justin Lewis out there. Siminovich, sure, he put on 25 pounds of muscle since he came into the league, so you know how that always goes. So I think they're going to be fun. I want to get another look at Jaden Hardy. When I saw him play in the G League last year, he was 0 for 11. It was probably the worst game he's ever had in his life, so I'd like to see him actually put one through the hoop in person.
That's my favorite subplot of this whole trip is that Corey's never seen his favorite shot.
Like, imagine I'm the Jaden Hardy curse. Like if he doesn't knock down shots, it's going to be a tough.
Given that the Kings sold the pick, maybe for 2 seconds we can feel good about that if you actually do curse him when he shows up in the arena. We do want all these guys to play well, but if the curse is effective for one night, maybe I'll take that.
But for me, it's just as a Bulls fan, I just want to see Dalen Terry and Justin Lewis, and otherwise, I'd imagine that game's not that exciting. But the next game, which is San Antonio, they have a lot of interesting and intriguing prospects that I'm looking forward to seeing. Primo, I want to see him go nuts. They have Blake Wesley, Malachi Branham. I want to see Malachi Branham.
I think Branham's going to have a good summer.
I want to see his defense in person.
Yes, there we go. There it is.
Because I think that...
Why are we being so... God, stop being so negative.
I just want to see it in person. I want to see
it be positive.
ELE.
I want to see if he's put in any film work. That's what I want to know.
I think Branham is made for Summer League.
I agree. Brandon's going to have a big summer league.
For very similar reasons to Paolo Banchero.
Yes.
Because he's the guy that can create his own shot and get to little 15-footers, and those are much easier to knock down than some of the off-the-bounce creation threes. So I do think Branham is a guy that could possibly have a nice little showing. I want to see Blake Wesley deal with the same issues that Jaden Ivey had to deal with last night of learning how to play with pace and see where he's out there. Like, the shots, I'm not worried about him knocking down a ton of shots right now. Just from a developmental standpoint, I want to see, can he play at multiple gears? That's what I want to see from him. Primo, I actually do want to see. He's got to knock down a ton of shots. He's got to go crazy because this is a guy who the Spurs took with a lottery pick, had a lot of developmental time in the G League, and now next year, now that they've kind of signaled that they're tanking for Victor, he's a guy that should be getting 25, 30 minutes a night at the NBA level. So I want to see Primo take the leap because his size and shot-making ability combination, it really is really intriguing. So while trading DeJounte Murray might seem like a crazy move, like if they really believe in Primo like they did, this is the time to show it, right? Just let him run wild. So I want to see him run wild.
Albert, back home, East Coast. Primetime game at 8 Eastern time, 5 Pacific for us. Warriors Knicks. That's the game I know you're looking forward to. You're a New York guy. What you can talk about the Warriors a little bit. Any Knicks guys that stand out? Like what do you want to see from some of those young guys tonight?
I mean, there are a lot of Knicks guys who don't stand out, like Amir Sims and Farron Hunt and these guys.
Two-way contract.
I know Farron Hunt, dude. He's working out with Julius Randle in Dallas. Good for him.
Albert is hating.
Wait, you don't like Farron Hunt?
No, it's not that I don't like him. It's like whatever.
You're about to wake up a sleeping giant.
Give him a two-way contract. Let's see how it works out.
He might actually murder someone on the court this week. That dude jumps, and sometimes I don't know if he lands.
I get it.
I'm
I'm excited for Keels. I really want to see Montero. Want to see some obviously Grimes and McBride. Hopefully they play a lot, and hopefully McBride gets to show off a lot of the stuff that he has. So I'm excited for that. Obviously the Warriors have a fun squad. Wiseman's not playing until Sunday, but Kuminga should be there. I think Ryan Rollins is hurt with a foot thing, right? I actually saw Ryan Rollins, and he's gigantic, and he's a lot bigger than.
We're gonna get Patrick Baldwin. We're gonna see PBJ for the first time.
It's gonna be exciting, and for me, just to watch the Knicks play again is always fun. And I want to see Montero play well. So
I'm excited for Montero. I think Montero's. This is actually, I think, a pretty good environment for him. Like even though like the 3-point shooting is the swing skill that you want to see him consistently playing, but I think he's actually got experience in environments like this. So I think he could have kind of a smooth transition. And with that open spacing, that open floor, playing with some of the real NBA guys, I think he could look okay. And he's feistier on defense than anyone wants to give him credit for. He's got really quick hands, and he goes at you. He closes the distance. He's like a boxer who's at a length disadvantage. He gets up in you to really get in your space. I'm excited to see Montero a lot.
And he's going to have a real chance to set the table for everybody, too. Which I think that's something that everybody wants to see. It's not just what the scoring package looks like, not just what the three-point shot looks like, but also can he be a legitimate table setter for an NBA team. And I think we're going to have a chance to see that. The Knicks have guys, at least in this setting, that can definitely knock down some open shots. And if Montero can get the ball to those guys, Knicks could have a pretty fun summer league run. Nick, anything else you're looking forward to seeing today?
I think Golden State is going to be, fun on the flip side of that matchup. It is, in fact, peanut butter jelly time, so it would be nice to see Patrick Baldwin Jr. do something out there on the court. It's unfortunate that Ryan Rollins isn't playing. He's someone who would have been really,
Shout out
really
to
fun.
Ryan Rollins.
Shout out to Ryan Rollins, of course.
Friend of the program.
Friend of the program.
He's someone who would have been really fun in summer league. I mean, that's an environment that he could do really well in. Is someone who, similarly to what we were saying with some of these other guys, serious mid-range shot creator who can get his own looks, and as soon as he gets the ball in his hands, it's not like he has to rely on someone else to create for him. So that would have been fun. Unfortunately, he's not there, but it'll be fascinating to see what Patrick Baldwin Jr. does on a team that's a slightly different environment than his college.
Don't sleep on Nuggets Timberwolves. Don't sleep on that game.
Is Bones playing, or is he just practicing with the team?
I think he was just practicing at camp. He wasn't listed officially, but yeah, you never know. I think a lot of these guys, even if they're listed in their events, like they're just going to be there for practices and stuff. Like Cade.
Yeah, I was about to say Cade was on the roster.
If Thunder play Giddy again, I'm going to actually have to call Presti somehow.
Listen,
what are you doing?
Giddy just likes to hoop, man.
Yeah, he rolled the dice.
We get Summer League Colin Gillespie in that one. We get Peyton Watson, who we've been hearing some good things, some good buzz about Peyton Watson in some of these practices. Our Rucker and I, our adopted son Christian Brown is going to be playing in this. I can't wait to see Christian Brown in a Summer League environment. So don't sleep on that game. And then Suns Lakers. I don't know. I got nothing. I'm not really looking forward to seeing a ton in that one, but I think
McKinley Wright the fourth. Don't sleep on him. Colorado's finest.
Shout out Tyler Metcalf. If we didn't at least mention Max Christie, he would probably
Max Christie, Scottie Pippen Jr.'s been having a good little summer league so far. Swider and
Sharif
buzzing a little bit.
You know what I found odd, because I saw Christie. Christie was the first guy that I saw live this year. It was Michigan State versus Kansas, so Ochai and Max Christie. And when I saw him live, I was like, this dude's big.
Yeah.
You know, like good frame, long. Like I thought he looked actually like more 6'7" than 6'5" in person.
Right.
But now in the summer league courts, I'm like, this dude's small.
Yeah.
So I had the optical illusion of seeing him in person and thinking he looked bigger than the college guys, but now going to watching him on an NBA screen and going, man, looks kind of tiny.
Yeah.
Weird for me.
That's like one of my favorite parts about summer league too, is you get to see a lot of these guys and you're just like, whoa. Like even the sophomores that you're like, man, he put on weight, or he's big, he looks huge. Like that was me and Albert saw Peyton Watson here when we came to Vegas to scout. I think the first thing I was like, he's humongous. And then he measured at the combine and I was like, what? 6'7", cause I thought he was like 6'9", and then he measured like 6'6" or 6'7". So it's just crazy sometimes. But yeah, I'm foaming at the mouth, excited for today.
I
you guys.
I think we all are, and
Yeah.
I think I'm just excited to be here with each and every one of you guys, getting to go to Thompson Mack as a squad. That's definitely going to be a lot of fun, and we'll have plenty to report on as we react to these games tomorrow. We'll get you ready for the slate tomorrow as well. We'll be doing these shows each day while we're out here, so definitely plenty more coming to No Ceilings TV. But thank you so much, everybody out there who listened to this podcast episode or is watching us live stream. We really appreciate you guys for tuning in, and plenty more content to come. But until then, let's go, guys. Let's go watch some basketball. Let's get pumped. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Watch some basketball.
Isaiah Stewart's good.